So apologies for anyone who has been patiently waiting on this here. We experienced some technical difficulties. And as you can see, I'm probably in my kind of different room here, so I'm still trying to adjust my video and stuff. But yes, we eventually got here, Michelle, didn't we?
We did.
We did. We thought the problem was you, and a quick sort of terrestrial, physical reaching into that kind of network rather than the astral. And got us a lovely person who sorted out our issue. The problem lied with me this time, folks, so apologies for that.
But you just never know.
I know we never know what's going to happen. And I guess probably like yourself, I used to really let that play in my emotions and really kind of get frustrated and flabbergasted, I think is the word I'm looking for there. About these situations, but now I mostly take them on my stride and I don't get stressed about them, because we were just talking about there, it must have been some sort of intervention as to why this didn't happen. Who knows?
Yeah, you just never know. Spirit may be saying, you've just got to relax and it will be okay.
Yeah, we don't know. Like there are many times, and we're not going to run on about this here, but there's many times like we get delayed in traffic, or we can't find something, and it keeps us back from doing something. And I'll just talk about this very briefly because I do want to introduce you. We took a break and decided to stay in a lovely country house, maybe about 30, 40, 50 minutes stride away from here. Got down there a few hours too late. So I was kind of like, well, that's kind of our day wasted. I wanted to spend most of the day exploring this place and thing. Anyway, because we were so late, we decided to go out for something to eat, but that was later again than what we had planned. We decided to take a car, and the host had said, like, if you want us to pick you up and stuff. And I said, no, it's okay. So when we were driving there, we seen a very bad accident.
Oh.
There was police cars cordoning off the town. There was multiple ambulances, and there was a helicopter in order to airlift the people who were in that accident to safety. So it seemed to be a very bad kind of accident. And I guess, not quite saying that it might have happened, but there's a possibility that if we had have got down there those few hours earlier, then potentially, we could have been involved in that accident. So I guess there's always a reason, for
absolutely.
And there is more to that story. It's a lovely wee story, but I'm not going to get into it about how we relayed that to the person stuff and what we kind of found. But maybe talk about it after anyway. We're here to talk about you. Never mind me.
No, we're here to talk about you as well. It's a team effort.
Well, you're right, it is. But, I'm the host and you're the guest. So I'm putting down the rules. We're talking about you. We're talking about you, Michelle Henderson. Michelle Henderson is a medium. Psychic medium. She is a former teacher. She is an educational diagnostician. I'm so glad I got that out. Behavioral analyst for over 30 years. She's also an author of, I've completely forgotten the book. Let me get it now. Let me get it. Okay. It is, oh my God.
Spiritual nurturing.
Spiritual nurturing for intuitive children.
Yes.
That was all that drama.
That's okay.
Spiritual nurturing for intuitive children. Brilliant, fantastic book. Really enjoyed it. And we're going to talk about that today. She also has her own website, her own YouTube channel. I actually thought you'd only created 3 YouTube videos when I was kind of looking at them. So I kind of liked all 3. And when I went back in and looked at them again, I went, how did I not see all of these before? You've like over 50 videos or something like that before. So I'm slightly disappointed or slightly annoyed I didn't come across them. So I was only able to look at the kind of most 3 or the 3 most big ones. But on top of that, you're also a healer and a speaker. So that's quite a mouthful there for anyone trying to get into kind of what you do. But I guess you've only sort of really come out, as far as I'm aware, as a psychic medium in the past year or maybe 2, isn't that right?
It's exactly right. Right when COVID happened is whenever I came out of the closet as a psychic medium. Of course, I knew all these years that I was, but it's one of those things that you don't talk about, especially in Texas, the Bible Belt of the United States. And so, but it really happened in the 20s. I knew that I had a spiritual awakening, and I knew that I had that psychic ability and also mediumship. And I went to actually a psychic medium that helped me, embrace it. And so I understood exactly what was happening, but it was not time for me to use it in my life. So I used it when I worked with children. But yes, so when COVID came around, I just had this calling. I just knew it was time to come out of the closet. And so, yes, so it's been a couple of years. And I actually came out on Facebook. I thought, okay, this is my own, my business channel. I have, followers. I'll talk to them. Well, like what we were saying, there's sometimes spirit interferes and there's a reason for it. So whenever I was talking about it and just excited about it, explaining it, I started seeing my friends on Facebook. I'm going, oh, I'm on my personal page. So now they know. But you know what? It was meant to be.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It must have been quite unnerving, I guess, because you're right. Like it's hard when you have work colleagues or friends or family who really don't have kind of any idea of what it is that you do or what it is that you're kind of capable of. That's certainly true in my life. I don't talk about this to anyone. There's nobody in my family I really talk to. They have a vague couple of hints that I kind of do this here, but that's generally it. And certainly none of my kind of people that I've kind of worked with, would really understand that. And it is hard. And I've talked about this at length because, we know what we can do. We know we have that connection with spirit, but it's other people around us. We're faced with that kind of like, well, they're going to ask us to prove it, that old one, or say it's not real, or, all that sort of stuff. So it's just easier keeping that part of our lives just personal to yourselves. And I guess also, unless you're actually going to do something with it, really at the end of the day, what purpose does it serve if you're going to start broadcasting it around the place? It's just this kind of look at me. So it is interesting that, the way it happened for you didn't actually mean for that to happen. I kind of wonder what the reaction was to that.
Absolutely. And what the reaction was, I was very surprised. I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to call me and talk to me and say, all right, you're doing the devil's work. I actually had a couple of people from church say, how cool is that? I want a reading right now. And, the people that really are friends of mine that are on my journey, they're not so, they go, oh, I'm not surprised at all. They just knew. And the people that really don't accept it or fearful of it, it was just like, they're not on my journey anyway. And they didn't really talk to me, but more acquaintances, and so it's kind of like you start getting people in your life that, will really accept who you are authentically. And that's whenever I started taking developmental classes with psychic mediumship. I met all of these psychic mediums. And now I've got so many friends who are in the business that accept it. We understand each other. Now, when did you come out of the closet as a psychic medium?
Well, I was just actually going to get to that. I've actually kind of put my development on hold because I was kind of involved in a church that caters for that. It's a spiritual church and kind of in an awareness type of environment and for progression onto what we would call circle, a circle of people to kind of develop that. But because of COVID and all that sort of stuff, it put everything on hold. So what actually happened then is that everyone was kind of back to square one. So those kind of 2 years that I'd already devoted on my life, it was kind of, and I was ready to move on then. I was ready to move on and develop it further. And I found myself kind of back at square one again, back with people who were just complete beginners. And at that stage, I would say that my path diverged into doing things like this here. But on top of that, as we were talking about, I don't think everyone can do it all, certainly not at the same time. And of the three things that I was developing, being a spiritual healer, involved in trance or channeling and psychic sort of mediumship, I found that I was more drawn to healing and the trance development. I really do miss the development and having the opportunity to practice, my psychic work and mediumship. But I think it's in the future, and I found myself so incredibly busy with doing this here, and that's just a whole other thing of so many guests, and I actually never wanted part of this here, doing videos and podcasts and blogging and all this, but I guess it's just spirit leads you in a way, I guess we have pre-incarnational plans, pre-incarnational things that we want to learn, but obviously when we come here, we completely forget all about that. So we're kind of reliant on a way in spirit to kind of lead us. This is what we agreed on. So, this is what you kind of need to be doing. So it was generally, I'd say to my friends, when I created my blog, which is going back about 3 years ago, that I just kind of mentioned that this is what I do, but I don't like to talk about it. And I don't, do anything public with it. But I really do miss, especially the psychic work. Maybe not so much the mediumship. I've never really drawn that much to mediumship, but I really do miss giving card readings. And I do it now and again, but just not, as I said, an environment where I can have that kind of daily or weekly practice. So that's why I'm really interested in listening to your story. I'm just wondering, how long did you train, or what was your kind of training in that? Because I've kind of mentioned mine. I'm kind of interested in finding out how you progressed.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that is a very good question. And of course, it all started when I was younger. So I could always feel energy around me. I didn't really see apparitions, but as a child, I could feel people in the room and I could feel different energies. And when I would go to school, I was so empathetic that I was worn out when I got home. And I was such an emotional child. I cried all the time. So when I became a teenager and a young adult, I started doing research on it. I was just really drawn to the metaphysical world. And I started learning more and more, saying, that is absolutely normal what is going on. And again, in my 20s, I went through that spiritual awakening, and I actually had spirit that would come and visit me, and I started hearing the voices. And I thought, I am going crazy. So I found a medium in the area, and she told me, she said, that is called mediumship, and you're hearing, spirits trying to connect with you. And at that time, I was not ready. But again, whenever COVID happened, it was like, it was time. It was time. So what I did is I got online, and Lisa Williams was offering a workshop for 9 months online. And it was almost like a developmental circle, which I love developmental circles, what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I learned that online, you can feel that energy as well. And that really surprised me. But I think, taking that 9-month program and really finding out more about, it's almost like tuning it, like when you learn how to fix a car, it's basically the same thing. You have that psychic mediumship ability and you know it. It's fine tuning your talent and your abilities and doing exercises. And so once you do all of that, it just kind of all comes together, and you have to really embrace the journey and the process. That's when the fear comes in, when you go, okay, I'm not in control. And the fear comes in, right? So just practice, practice, practice. I took so many workshops. I took some workshops before COVID, before I came out, just because I was, again, drawn to it. And I just felt like I was with my other people. I felt at home with others, and I could talk about it openly where I couldn't at work or at home. So once you find your group and you can talk more about it, when I meet new people, I don't come out and say, hey, I'm a psychic medium. Because you don't know what their background and what their journey is. And I know that through my life, my personality, it's going to come through anyway. So a lot of times I'll tell them, of course, I'm still working for a school district part-time. And then if they ask me about the other, I said, oh yeah, I'm a spiritual coach. I have these intuitive abilities. When you say spiritual coach, they go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. But for some reason, when you say psychic medium, it's like the fear comes.
Yeah, I think I know that is because people, they're going to read my mind. They're going to be able to tell what I done last Thursday. I sat on the couch and ate that 2 bars of chocolate or something potentially, what they think's even worse really at the end of the day. But it doesn't happen like that,
No.
It's down to free will. You have to freely give that kind of information or allow, because spirit will not come in and just go, oh, well, I know what you done last summer, that type of thing. It doesn't work like that. But you're right. For anyone kind of that you come across and you mention, well, I'm a psychic medium, you're either going to get derision or you're going to get people who will kind of back away from it. So it's a really good way to break the ice type of thing, to say, well, I'm a spiritual coach or spiritual teacher. But you kind of well, what I'm trying to say here is that you kind of knew that from an early age, where my path was kind of different. We both had an awakening. I think that there's something about this time where we kind of know, but obviously there are more and more people awakening in these last few years. There really is. Awakening off their abilities. I kind of look back on my life and go, well, it was kind of all in place, the books that I was researching as a child, and the interests that I had, and the type of personality that I had, and potentially more stuff that I've completely forgotten. But because I had no one to kind of tell me about it, or no one to kind of reach out to, I kind of grew up and went, well, there kind of is nothing, I'll have to push. I never knew anything anyway. And it wasn't only until my awakening, I buried myself that deep. It wasn't until my awakening where I happened to encounter a psychic medium, sort of became friendly with him and found out that I was like, psychic, what? And I'd heard of the term, but, somebody had said to me, like, how many psychic mediums do you believe that there are in your city or in your thing? I would have said 5. And many of them do you think are genuine? I would have said 1. So I had no idea about that side of spirituality. I knew what the term was, but I didn't actually know that there was this whole world, living side by side with me that was I'd grown up and kind of passed on. So that was my kind of awakening. And I think, like most people who have awakened in these past few years, it has been absolutely, the growth has been exponential, I guess, with opening up and getting in contact with spirit or those higher dimensional, beings, and just having my own kind of abilities and connections. And probably like you, I went through that kind of religious upbringing and rejected it because I didn't find any satisfaction there, and even completely rejected the teachings of it and Jesus and dead on, that type of thing. And now I've actually kind of went full circle back to this deeper understanding of who Jesus Christ actually was and what he was about, just on a deeper level than what is being taught in our religious organizations. So I find myself having that in common with you too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Jesus has always been my best friend, and I still embrace, even though, the churches are very, very strict and abide by the Bible. I still embrace my background because, hey, that's where I came from. And I still, back when I was little, I would talk to Jesus all the time, and I'm going, he's my best friend. I don't see him as an angry God. I don't see him as an angry person. So he's so loving and caring. And yes, when you look at, the different aspects of what Jesus was really all about, then you start going, that makes total sense. Yeah. He had so much love and light.
Absolutely. And I've done a few pieces on him, and I've talked about a connection that I feel that I've had. But again, I suppose like many people, I don't know if this relates to you, Michelle. I don't remember reading too much in your book about it. But certainly, like a lot of spiritual people, they've been through a lot of trauma and through a lot of kind of hard times. And I'm kind of no different. And that's where I found that I developed this relationship with Jesus. And he actually plays, or that spirit who we call Jesus, has actually played a massive kind of part in my life. You know, felt a really personal connection with him and who he's about. And I've wrote pieces on him. I've talked in my podcast about the universality of Jesus, that he's not just a Christian figure, you know, that he's revered in Muslim circles, in Muslim teachings, in you know, they potentially went and learned in India under Hindus and yogis and stuff like that. He's very well mentioned in Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda. They revere him there, and even in all these kind of channelings that we get from a number of sources, what we would call kind of extraterrestrial or higher dimensional sources. Certainly in the things that I've read, they talk about Jesus as being the great teacher, you know, and it's because of his message of love. And they talk about, obviously, you know, that what we're talking about now, this great shift that we're going through, he was talking about that 2,000 years ago. So this is kind of what his teachings were. So it's just really interesting. And as I said, it's just opened up my eyes to who he was, and kind of brought me back a bit full circle to my religious upbringing, but just kind of looking at it in a different way.
Right. And, you know, whenever I do talk about the churches and everything, I always have to remember, you know, and Jesus is non-judgmental. So I'm going to be the same way. Everybody has different journeys and, you know, have to learn different ways in different things, because that's why we're here. And so that is one reason why I don't judge any type of religion or spirituality. But I do think it's really important to have something, you know, that there's a greater good, because, you know, when you do go through those difficult times, you do have somebody or something that you can talk to or fall back on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tell us then about your, because obviously you grew up, you know, having that awareness about you, having that intuition about you, you know, knowing kind of what you'd kind of known. You were a bit different from most other people, but then you got involved with children, but through being a teacher, you know, being an educational diagnostician.
Good. That's it.
I am a behavioral analyst, and obviously seen many different kids. And I know that you work with autistic kids, and you wrote a book called The 3-Element Social Skill Program and Instruction, Drama, and Technology. And that's obviously before this latest book. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, I think it's so great that Spirit really gives you what you need through life. And, you know, when you're reading all that, I'm going, did I do all that? You know, it does, it wears you up, but I had the energy to be able to do it. So whenever I was a teacher, I really got involved with diagnosing kids and helping children in special ed. So that's when I became an educational diagnostician. And there I just fell in love with kids with autism. So then I started working with them in the social skills. And my husband and I through my research, I said, oh my gosh, we have to develop a social skill program where they're doing video modeling, because that's when the green screen just came out, you know, for the public. And so, you know, I just loved working with the kids with autism and teaching the social skills and doing the video modeling. Okay. And then it's just so funny how it just kind of step by step. Then I became a behavior analyst, where I really worked with children and their families in the home. And I would work with the families and show them how to work with their children and how to get them to talk, or some intervention ABA program. And that's when I really started, you know, thinking outside the box, thinking, you know, these kids are so spiritual. They bring us so much love. But anyway, so right after becoming a behavior analyst, I really felt called to write this book. It was almost like it was channeled to me. And when I was doing research, especially with kids with autism, I could understand what they needed. It was almost like we were telepathically talking to one another, and I didn't know what it was at the time. And all of a sudden, when I was doing research, I saw that. And I'm trying to think of his name. William Stillman is actually a psychic medium who has been diagnosed with with Asperger's or high functioning autism. And he talks about that, yes, children can telepathically talk with you. And I'm going, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened. So anyway, I felt like the experience has really brought me in. Whenever I was talking to my friends about becoming a psychic medium, all of them said that when they were a child, they shut it down. Their parents didn't know what to do. And so I thought, you know what? I have the experience, I have the educational knowledge to be able to pull this book together. And I knew exactly what needed to be in there. And so the objective was really to help parents if they have, a child that's talking to someone who has crossed over and it's a loved one, a grandfather. Some parents will be afraid of it, which it's just fear of the unknown, right? So knowledge is so powerful. So that's one reason why I decided to go ahead and write the book. It was time. I kept being pushed. You've got to do this. And so it came to be.
Brilliant, fantastic. And obviously, you've incorporated quite a lot of that into your new book too, which is a sort of guide for parents who are kind of going through that type of thing, which I want to get into a bit. And I thought I was actually going to learn you something there with this kind of high functioning autism, because I thought she'll not know this here, which is what they call autism, but yes. Obviously you're ahead of the game. You already know that. Yeah. So, and then you started this thing in 2006, which is IASIS. It's a non-profit, isn't it? It's teaching.
Yes.
Social
let me explain what the acronym means. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Imagination and Social Instruction Station.
Imagination and Social Instruction Station.
Yes. So what I was imagining, it was because I had a nonprofit business where we were teaching these social skills for children. And so they were using their imaginations. They were using like improv. They were developing skits. So drama has a lot to do with social skills, because just think about it. A lot of our actors that are out there in movies or whatever, the more script and the more improv that they do, the more that they can handle different situations. And that was the same with the kids with autism, is through modeling and through watching themselves on video, they could really become more self-aware.
Yeah, that's it. Like, once again, you've incorporated some of that into the new book as well. Mm-hmm. So
yes,
just obviously fantastic techniques and things that that are really useful for children and for parents. And so after this here, you actually became an ordained minister in 2019, isn't that right? Just before you actually came out. I know you were certified as a spiritual advisor in 2021, but is that the same thing, an ordained minister? It's not an actually religious ministry?
No, it isn't. So what it mainly just shows is that you are very spiritual, and I'm in the spiritual business, and it also helps whenever, I want to say taxes as well, so that, the tax people know that it is a type of spirituality. And I want people to know that I am serious about that type of business. And being in education, I always feel like you need some type of credentials. And so that's one reason why I also got that.
Okay, brilliant. So let's talk about the book then. And as I said, I found it very fascinating. We were just talking about the book beforehand, and we were talking about the different things that you have in it, and they're all like techniques and tips and educational resources that I have actually done as an adult in my own kind of spiritual development. And I felt actually like a child, like, oh my God. But I guess that's just because I think it's harder, isn't it? It's a lot harder to teach adults than it is to teach children, because children are more of a blank slate. They're more kind of malleable. They're more kind of open to that. Whereas we have all this lifetime of baggage behind us that we have to undo, and belief and disbelief, And I remember when I went through my spiritual awakening, it was, I just got this massive rush of energy. I had no idea what the hell it was. I thought maybe I was hallucinating. This person had spiked me. And it happened a couple of times. My eyesight was going blurry, all these things, and I didn't understand what I was going through until it was explained to me, that this is spirit coming in and touching you, tapping you, awakening you, this type of thing. And even at that, it took I don't want to say a long time, but it took tutoring. It took hours and hours of listening to, to all this kind of stuff and about spirituality. And it was kind of like, I don't know if I believe this or not. I really don't. So it was kind of like this circle, and it actually took a long time as in, maybe weeks, if not longer, in order for me to kind of even become halfway or 1 foot across the circle to going, okay, well, I sort of believe this. So I guess that's because I didn't have that framework around me. I didn't have that structure around me. And because, as we'd mentioned, I'd buried myself so much in this kind of physical reality that it was very hard to undo that conditioning, undo that kind of, it's almost as if you're brainwashed. Somebody is trying to undo the brainwashing that you've been through. It's very hard to break that. So that was kind of what it is for me. And I imagine a lot of people are kind of like that, that they've been through this thing. And kids are obviously very different. And I guess the earlier that you can get kids, then the easier it is to teach them.
Absolutely. And everything that you just said, I went through the same thing as well. So yeah, you get that ego in you're in the way. And when you're doing an exercise or something in a developmental circle, it stops. Okay. And the energy stops. And you're not having that confidence in yourself, where children are not at that point where they're judging it and it becomes an everyday life, because they just came to this world, right? And so they, like you said, they haven't been conditioned yet. And so what I've done is, yes, I've learned a lot of those exercises in a developmental circle, and I put it where we can teach children. So I did it because what is psychic mediumship is all imaginative. You use that part of the brain in the imagination to connect with spirit, because if you get that logic in there, you start thinking, you start second guessing yourself. But yeah, so I feel like if children start earlier, they will accept it. They will accept others' abilities as well, because not everybody has the same ability, as you know. And so I think through the exercises, they can either use it or not use it, because everybody's on a different journey. But whenever they get visited by spirit, they'll know not to be afraid of it, and they will feel like they're in control. Because I know whenever I first started getting visited, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not in control at all. But if you show these kids, yes, you are in control of what happens to you. Spirit is not in control, you are. And I think through the exercises, the breathing exercises, the yoga, that all helps. But yeah, and the crystal part of the book is also crystals for children. So I know that when we find a crystal, you go to the one that you're drawn to, but sometimes, kids don't know. And so that's one reason why I looked at, well, how can crystals help children?
Yeah.
And how can these different, and I know we talked about the breathing techniques. Whenever, an adult does a breathing technique, it's totally different than a child. It has to be more kinesthetic. So it has to be more concrete so that the child understands. And also whenever you do yoga, you make a story out of it, make it fun. Because if you do it like an adult, a child might actually hurt themselves and they're hyperactive anyway. And it's like, they're going to go, what? You want me to do what? But if you make it into a story, make it fun, and talk about the different kind of energy, they're going to enjoy it so much more.
Yeah. And it really is. It's so packed full of exercises and things like that there, and techniques for helping develop. And I'm actually a bit jealous that this book wasn't around whenever I was going through my development, because before I found that class, I was kind of largely on my own, and I wasn't getting the development that I needed. And I was going, how do I develop? How do I grow? But not, I knew I was going through a spiritual awakening, but that was about it. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how or what to do. I didn't know anything about this. I think there's times there where you're trying to develop, you're trying to grow, you're asking to become more spiritual. I think we can overload ourselves with thought, and you can blow a fuse in your mind. And there's times where I've said, you know what, that's it. I'm walking away from this. I'm done with it all. Forget about it. I come back to little old me again. That's it. Back to my old life. And even though I didn't have that guidance really around me, I think everybody can relate to the fact that it doesn't last long, that you're drawn back in. Once you're going through this process, you can't put the jack back in the box. Pandora's box is opened, and all you can do is go forward. And once you kind of go through that phase of going, well, I've banged my head off the wall, of blowing fuses, I've decided I'm walking away from it, you actually come back stronger again, don't you? But it is, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is a book like yours is just so vital for anyone going through a spiritual awakening, and for kids especially, because children are at various stages of life trying to develop a personality of their own, trying to figure out where they fit in with the world, trying to understand their relationship to their peers, other school children, society in general, dealing with puberty, conflicting emotions. So, to go through all that and to potentially go through a spiritual awakening with all those things that you say in your book, potential rejection, not understanding from parents, not understanding from community, it must be extremely, extremely difficult. And to have, as I said, a book like this here is just so, so vital.
No, I certainly hope so. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of the things you mentioned, you mentioned your auras, the chakras. We talked about breath work, meditation, mandalas, yoga. There's just about everything in your book that you could possibly want a child or someone to be instructed in. Because as I said, I've been through all those things as an adult, and obviously you've been through all those type of things. And one of the phrases that I really liked in your book, and I wonder if you could elaborate a bit on it, is looking at the world through a child's eyes. It's about nurturing those spiritual gifts and how society puts blocks upon those gifts.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I think as an adult, I think especially as children get older, older teen into young adulthood, they start seeing life as what it is. We get our job in the way. We start, thinking about things to just survive every day in the world. Like you said, you get busy and your mind is on more of earthly, issues, and you kind of put your spirituality on the side. You don't have fun anymore. The stress gets to you, and that's where you get mentally and physically ill. And so, I mean, and this too, as completing readings, a lot of times, especially psychic readings, a lot of times you always want to say, you need to go back to that childhood. You need to enjoy life. You need to look at the little things. Look at a tree blowing, because when a child first comes into the world, they are experiencing everything. It's almost like, also, I don't know why it just came to mind, but it's also when you have a puppy for the first time, and the puppy, sees a leaf, and they see them, that leaf being blown, and they're going, I don't know, to be afraid of this. So it's just looking at the eyes of a child, looking at it from a fresh perspective. So whenever you do have a spiritual awakening, think of it as, oh my gosh, I'm a child. I'm learning this. What can I learn from it? And don't judge it, because children don't judge. They kind of look at it and go, okay, this is all fun and everything. and especially like snow, and especially being here in Texas, we don't see snow often. But my little puppy, when it saw snow for the first time, it was so much fun to watch. It's like, oh, what is this? This is so great. So I think we all should be on a daily basis getting out of bed and a fresh mind and say, okay, what would a child see, during this day? What do I want to see as a child?
Yeah. Now, Michelle, there's one of two things going on here. Either you've read my blog or
Oh,
you really are psychic.
yes, I had. I did read one blog, but I don't think it was about that. It was the first one. Yeah.
Part of my blog is dedicated to messages that I receive from the higher self, which I'm assuming is the higher self anyway, or guides, whatever you want to call it, which is fine anyway. But the messages were coming. It was kind of pre-trance training where I was verbalizing those messages. So it was just getting that, all right, okay, now I've got all this inspiration. I need to get this message down. And one of the messages was, I called it wonder. And it was basically the same thing about rising every day and looking through the eyes of a child. It was about knowing that we here on planet Earth, and they said we. Now, I don't know who we are. Could be my guys, could be my whole team. They said we see what is happening on planet Earth. We know that you're getting up each day. You're fed up with your life. You're fed up with going to work. There's no kind of joy in it, and you wish for a different life. But we can't help with that. What we can help you with is to see through the eyes of a child. Imagine that you're a child again and rise each day with wonder, and wonder what the day is going to have with you. Like, imagine how you feel when you feel around Christmas time, that kind of anticipation. I wonder what's going to happen. So rise each day and greet each day with wonder. I wonder what I'm going to experience today. I wonder what, gifts are going to befall me or experience that I'm going to have. And so I think you're just absolutely right. That's exactly what we need to do is remember what it was like and as a child. And whenever I see children today, they're so, because I think about this often, well, they're obviously indigo children, they're rainbow children, because you can just see it. I think that they see the light within you. I think that they see the light. They can spot that light. They're so friendly and so welcoming, and it depends on the age of them. Even you'll see babies staring at you. Mm-hmm. I think that they see that light within you because they have that ability still with them.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. And I think too, and and this is something that I did not put in the book, but I know when I was working with autism children, they would look off. And this is a child, from 3 to 5 that I was working with. And they would kind of look off. And sometimes they would start laughing. I'm going, what are you laughing at? And they would and you could just see that they saw something. But I think that they can also see the Earth's energy. Whatever is radiating from the earth, they can see the grids, they can see the different, dimensions, everything. And they are not afraid of it. They're just in awe. And I think a lot of times they want to keep watching it. And here we bring them back to earth, that type of thing. Yeah. But I'd love to call them kaleidoscope children because, when you get a kaleidoscope and you look at the different patterns, and it's kind of like a sacred geometric pattern. Yeah. I'm having tongue tied for that. So, whenever I do channeling with spirit through writing and drawing, I get a lot of geometric patterns. And I'm trying to figure out what everything means, but I can just feel that pen going around. I'm going, okay, someday spirit will let me know what each pattern means, where I think children will pick it up immediately and know exactly what each pattern will mean.
Yeah. And kids, young adults nowadays, you can see that they are a different, people always talking about, the young of today, a crazy generation, without actually knowing what it means. It's they are different souls, they are different spirits, they are more advanced, if you want to call it that. They're from higher vibrations, come here in order to raise the vibration of this planet and help the rest of us, I should say, because we're still learners in this too. Mm-hmm. And with that comes this idea of a rejection of the old system. You've got to get out and work hard. You've got to, get your exams. You've got to get out and get a part-time job. You've got to do this. And kids nowadays are kind of like, no, that doesn't interest me. No, maybe that's what you want to do. But I want to go out and sail the world. I want to go out and explore. I want to, be a creative artist in whichever field that is. And they're so adept at technology from such an early age. And I think that's what it is. It's not that they're a crazy generation or morals have degraded in society. It's this idea that they're very spiritual and very, very special children who
Agreed.
Yeah. And I think that these type of children, because we're going to get into this because it's a massive subject, because they're at such a high vibration, and this has come from stuff that I've read, is they don't fit in with this vibration easily, this lower vibration. And so it causes, one way of looking at it is it causes these kind of problems or issues. They can't fit in this vibration, so they're physically different. And we label those things as, well, that person is autistic. That person is suffering with Asperger's. It's not that they have a condition. It's not that they're I don't want to say stupid, but it's not that they are slow or anything like that. It's nothing to do with an intellect. It's nothing to do with so much a physical impairment. It's because they have come from such a high vibration. These kind of vibrational waves don't fit in with them. They don't think, and they can't cope with a physical body. Their mind is elsewhere. So yeah, could you just talk about that just briefly, because that is something that we really want to discuss.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with you that, we tend to, and especially working as a diagnostician, I was, one that would help with that, is that we're trying to give them services. We want them to, be able to be independent daily. And you're right there. They have such a sensitivity, their sensory systems are just like out of this world. And a lot of times that's when, if they don't know how to deal with that sensitivity in their sensory system, they will have meltdowns. And I know for these parents, it is a very difficult situation to handle if you have those meltdowns constantly and everything. And I think that's, one reason why we need to help the parents know how to cope with that whenever it does happen. But I think about it too. And we talked about Jesus earlier. Don't you know that his mother went through a lot of difficult stuff raising him? So it's almost like these families are heroes to us, raising these kids that have this oversensitive, over energy and so forth, because they are vibrating at a different level. And I think and it's so funny that you said about that we've gotten into the rhythm of life and it brings down our energy. But with COVID, and I keep bringing up COVID, it was kind of a awakening for everybody, saying, you know what? I'm not going back to my job that kept me working 24 hours a day. I know there's more to life. So I think our energy is actually raising. And I think these kids, we can learn from them. That's why I loved working with all types of children, because I felt like hopefully they learned from me, but I learned so much from them. And I think we can, as adults, just again, looking through the eyes of a child. But yes, so I think our world energy is raising quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's learning to reach these children in a way that they can understand. This is why autism and I know high functioning autism has been so misunderstood, because we have not understood the way that we need to reach these children. You talk about this in your book, that perhaps they're even communicating telepathically, and we're trying to reach them with instruments and poking and prodding at them and trying to get them to read a letter or a word or something like that. Then they're probably in their mind going, why is this person bothering me? My mind is cosmic, and they're like bleeding like a sheep or something like that to me. So it's learning to reach them through a way that they can understand, and when we do that, then we can learn so much from them. Obviously, there are different types of children that you mentioned in your book, and I think a lot of people will in the spiritual community will understand this. But I don't know if maybe you could talk maybe about the different types of children, like what's an indigo children compared to a rainbow child, or what's the difference between a crystal child compared to a kaleidoscope child?
Yeah, it's very interesting through my research. Okay. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, that started in the 60s. And I was actually, of course, this ages me, but I was born in the 60s. But Nancy Tate was actually, and I guess you could call her a psychic, but she could see auras around people. And especially with the children that she worked with, she could see the indigo. So there's where the name came from. And these indigo children are supposed to teach us, again, how to love and how to be spiritual. And a lot of these kids had the ADHD, they were just like bouncing up all the time. My brother was hyperactive. I'm thinking maybe he was spiritual. But anyway, and then after that came the crystal children. And what I understand is a lot of the indigo children had crystal children. Okay. And their pathway was almost the same as their parents. Okay. But they were much more accepting, where indigo children were not as accepting because they would not accept, I don't want to say accept authority, but if it wasn't something spiritual or in the laws and the rules and the regulation didn't have that spirituality, they would get angry because they were like warriors. They were saying, I'm going to change things. Where crystal children were going, okay, let's calm down now. Let's have that love and the peace and everything else. And then the rainbow children also have come for the love and everything. So it's very interesting how each generation has their own energy, for the earth. And I know that Doreen, oh my God, Virtue started with the crystal children, and she received this information from angels. So that's where the crystal children came from. So it seems like each generation, somebody is, I don't want to say labeling these children, but to me, we shouldn't really look at the label. I mean, we should say, yeah, they do have a purpose. And I think even if you don't fit that category or you don't see yourself in that, you're still a light worker.
Absolutely. And I've, through my own kind of work, sent one or two wee things for you just to kind of recognize whether you are that type of person. The terminology that I would kind of use is a wanderer, but it's basically explaining the same thing. It's a soul or a spirit who's come from one of the many higher vibrations down into the planet Earth for this idea of raising the vibration. And I guess it's probably important for anyone who actually doesn't know what we're talking about. Raising the vibration, what are they talking about? That's
yes.
love. It's kind of this idea that there's a kind of new earth coming, and that we all kind of have to be ready for it, or we're all kind of we need to leave the old kind of world behind, the old kind of system that we've kind of grown up in, or has been kind of going on for the last lot of thousands of years. And it seems to be something that's going to be very much based in love and understanding. And this is why we're seeing a lot of these kids coming in, and and a lot of this talk about love and stuff. So I just wanted to clarify that just slightly. I don't know if that's your understanding or not, but
yes, and it absolutely is my understanding that we are kind of going into a different new age and everything, but I think it also helps people become more aware, because we still have that low energy, and we still need to bring up those vibrations for everybody. Again, it's education and just loving life will bring up that vibration. And to me, it just brings the love, and why we're all here, right? And I think it's interesting you brought up the wanderers, because a lot of times, and I know I felt alone. I thought, are other people like me? That kind of thing. You do feel alone. And I think when you do, you need to really, and thank goodness for the internet, that you need to get on and find people that are experiencing the same thing you are, because you wonder. I mean, it's like, I know I don't fit here, but but I'm here, so I have to. I have a mission to do, something to do. So yeah. So there again, with education, I think it's really important for these wanderers to get together.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that just came to mind there to me when you were talking, I thought, like, never mind children. There's so many adults that could be doing with Michelle's teachings and Michelle's books. There's so many adults who are lost out there who are pretty much need to go through the same process as these children are, because there's so many people, as we've talked about there, who display those characteristics. And I think that the important thing to remember is we call these children indigo children, rainbow children, crystal children. But because coming to this planet involves taking a physical body, and kind of you have to go through a mind wipe, it's having to try and find that memory again. It's having to, and it's not like you have this direct connection to source. I kind of know that I meant to do something a bit different. I feel that I'm different. I have this vague sense that, I'm meant for something more, but unless you have some sort of teaching or some sort of person that you can speak to, a lot of people go through life never actually having that realization, never having that spiritual awakening. I think more people could absolutely benefit from teachings like yours, from books like yours. I think a lot of people end up as alcoholics and drug addicts on the streets, homeless, not because they want that life or because they're bad people or whatever you want to call them, because they feel that disconnection inside them and they don't know where to go to and they can't explain it. And because as a society, we're all kind of separated and we don't talk about this quite enough, they feel that they've nobody to talk to. And so they try and bury those feelings through alcohol and drug addiction and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree totally. And what's very interesting is being a psychic medium, and I've talked to others, your energy and your experiences, you actually attract people that need your type of healing. So if you've gone through alcoholism, you'll have a lot of people needing readings from you and healing from you that have gone through alcoholism. So I think it's interesting about those different experiences. You're right. They're not bad people. They just don't know where to go. And sometimes alcohol will be their friend. And again, they just need to find somebody and find that support.
Absolutely. And I think you're right, actually, as well, that being a healer as well, you find a lot of people who are drawn to you, it's also not about actually, I don't want to say it's not about, let me try and get my words right here. It is obviously about getting the healing, but healing also involves having the right words to say to a person.
Right.
That's as much part of healing as putting hands on, as sending love, light, energy, whatever form of healing you practice. It's about having the right words to say to that person, to send them away. And I know whenever I do my healing in my charity, that we see people coming through the door broken and crying and don't quite know what way to do, or in any kind of state, and to actually administer healing, but also to find the right words to give to that person and to see them leave, is just something that money cannot buy. And that's what really draws me to healing, the importance of it, to help change someone's life. And I think it's right. It's from your own experiences and telling people, well, look, I've been in a similar situation, maybe not quite to the extent that you've been in, maybe not the exact same circumstances, but I can absolutely relate and look at what I'm doing. Anything's possible. Mm-hmm. I think it just provides such inspiration. I just kind of wonder, you mentioned that you're a healer, and I actually didn't quite find out too much about that. From just doing a little bit of research, and just wondering, could you talk maybe just a little bit about that?
Right. Well, I really, and exactly what you said. I think being a healer, it's almost like you're a light worker. Okay. And a light worker can just, if you pass somebody in the street and you smile at them, you're being a healer. Okay, so I think whenever I meet with clients, for either psychic reading or mediumship reading, now if I meet them for psychic reading, it's more about them, right?
Yeah.
So whatever they're going on in their life, and I always tell them, I connect in with your team, I connect in with the spirit, with the source, and whatever message that I give you is for you and you alone. And sometimes they'll be going, I don't accept that. It's like, it's okay. You don't need to accept it right now. Let's write it down. And then you can refer to it later. But you still have some type of healing going on. And a lot of times I get my energy and I'm able to send them love energy. And they can feel it. They may not really understand it. But with mediumship, a lot of times my clients are going through, the grieving process. And just knowing that their loved one said hello from the other side, that just does so much healing. So whenever I heal, it's not just me. I feel like I am a healer, but I bring, the love source or divine, whoever you believe in, and angels to come and help. So, and I'm just here to help them do the healing.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I should have really clarified that. Performing psychic work, performing mediumship is also, it's all healing really at the end of the day.
Right.
We can put labels on it, but they're just different forms of healing really at the end of the day, because what we're doing ultimately is all in service to everyone else. If you're actually giving, a type of healing, Reiki healing or spiritual healing or whatever else, you're obviously healing. If you are giving a reading to someone through mediumship or psychic reading, you're still healing at the end of the day. You're giving that person information or some sort of relief from their emotions, from their trauma, that they didn't have before. So ultimately, everything that we're doing is ultimately healing, really, at the end of the day, really, isn't
Right.
it? So, yeah, thank you for reminding me about that, or for putting that idea into my head. I guess one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know whether we've kind of covered it before, is we see many people who will say that they're leading a spiritual life, and they will identify themselves as spiritual, but that seems to be something very different from the spiritualism that we are talking about, and that's people with spiritual gifts.
Right.
I'm wondering, is there, because reading this question back, or reading this statement back to myself and going, I don't know how the hell I would answer that, so I'm hoping I'm not putting you in a difficult spot by asking you to give your thoughts on it.
Okay, well, there's actually, so spiritualism is actually a religion. And I know that they practice it in England or Britain, and they also practice it here in the US. They all, both of the spiritualism churches have different principles. I can't remember if we have 9 or, but anyway, so there's, and you can actually be a Christian and be, a spiritualist as well. Lilydale, which is in New York, was created in the late 1800s for people who really believed in spirit and who were mediums. They would come together and go to Lilydale and they would do mediumship. And so that's whenever it started in the United States. Now, to be spiritual, I think that, and it means different for different people, it just knowing that there is something higher than yourself. Even though, we have our true selves and, we believe in our spirit team and that we're in charge, we have free will and, we've got a plan and everything. It's always good to know that there's something that's a higher good that really has made not only us, but everything all together, and just knowing that we're all one, I guess you could say. And so that's, and knowing life is spiritual. You can just, live daily and just feel that spiritual. So there is there is a difference where spiritualism, where you are practicing a lot of times, or you believe in mediumship, connecting with the other side.
Yeah, that's actually a really brilliant answer. I got more out of that answer than I thought that I would have.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really good. I guess, one of the things that we kind of talk about too is, and one of the things that you mentioned in your book is that it's kind of not all rosy. There can be a sort of dark side, if you like, to this here, especially if you don't have the right environment, right educators, right teachers around you. Then kids being kids as well, they're always kind of looking to rebel and stuff like that, can sort of become involved in, maybe kind of like culty type of behavior and stuff. And I know from my own self that this was kind of like my kind of growing up. I was kind of, looking into cults and looking into heavy metal bands and stuff like that, and magic spells and stuff like that. I think ultimately it was quite innocent. It was just that kind of part of growing up and finding your boundaries. But there can be a very kind of dark side to it, where kids do become involved in drugs and booze through various cults. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you could talk about on that there. Have you any research?
Right. Well, and I think it's really important for parents to be aware of it, because a lot of times, again, if you're, feeling the spirit world and you're being shut down and you're not being accepted for who you are, you're going to find other people who will accept you. It's almost like being a gang member, right? So they're going to experiment. And I know the Ouija boards, and it depends on what you think. And I think it's your intention when you use a Ouija board. I mean, I experienced with Ouija boards. It wasn't for me. It actually kind of scared me when I was diving into it, because I had my dog sitting next to me and he started barking and I'm going, okay, I'm done. But again, it's your intention. So I know some psychic mediums that will use a Ouija board and, they love and light and everything else. But whenever you're a teenager and you get in this cult and you get that lower vibe, the lower energy, and you start harming yourself or you start cutting yourself, there's other things going on. But they're just trying to, be accepted, just like an alcohol, like what we just talked about. If, you're using drugs to be, to numb yourself. Well, they're trying to find an acceptance, especially when you're a teenager. We all do, right? But I think parents need to be aware of it. And if they see this going on, they really need to set their child down and have a conversation and just say, we know what you're doing. That's something that you're learning, but you can also get hurt from it.
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. And it kind of leads on to this next part of the book, where you have all these kind of things in place for parents, what parents can do if they suspect their child has spiritual abilities, and who can they go to and what can they do. And some of the things that we've obviously kind of talked about, about learning the meditation from a very early age, which is a fascinating one. I think you've mentioned it's like a minute for every year of their life that they have been alive. So if they're 7 years of age, no more than 7 minutes, which is really brilliant. Learning them breath work, types of breath work and stuff like that, teaching them about auras, chakras, coloring ins, vision boards for older people, all that sort of stuff. And I just think that's really, really fascinating. I'm wondering if you could talk maybe about that. Oh yeah, you've also got bubble wands, straws, crystals, even smudging, which I've done myself, and obviously prayer. And I think that's all stuff that parents can do with children, if they're open to it, and if they're willing to develop their child's spiritual abilities, because I'm sure there are some people who obviously aren't, who would kind of reject that. So it's very, very important to, if you're going to accept it, to start exploring these things and learning with your child too.
Absolutely. And I think if you do have a family that comes to you as a light worker, you need to also look to see where the parents' beliefs are, because a lot of times, if we say, okay, to a Christian family, we want you to get crystals, we want you to get sage, and they're going to be going, no, I want you out of here. So you really need to see where the family is coming from. And then, so as the family is learning all these techniques that their child can do and they're beginning to accept it, the family really needs to do it with the child, because it's almost like, a family that prays together stays together, is what they say, So I think if even if you don't believe what your child believes in, because I know a lot of teenagers will start believing in different things, you as a parent, you need to accept it. And I think if you meditate with your child, it's like they feel supported. And as a parent, you can also learn so much spiritual from meditation. But if you give the parent different art activities or something that they can do with their child, they will bond much better. And the child will open up and be able to explain everything that is going on in their life. So instead of going, I'm not going to talk about it, they'll be more open to it and accepting of others.
And there's a couple of different things that you've mentioned then as a child kind of develops, where they can start, or maybe not develops, but starting to get into, the older years, teenage years, which is automatic writing, oracle cards, dream interpretation, which is a massive part of the book, and something that I'd never heard of before, which is an orograph.
Yes. And it's almost like it's spirit art. So whenever you do an orograph, oh my gosh, this has been going on since I want to say World War II is whenever it was really developed. But what you do is, and you can use cards to develop it, but it's almost like a psychic reading on paper. And you do it in a circle, okay? And that's a very symbolic. But I've learned how not to use. I don't like boundaries, so I don't do mine in a circle anymore. But you can just use different colors, whatever color comes to you. You can use symbols, and it becomes like an art piece for a person. And whatever they're going through spiritually, and it's like, it really is something concrete that the reader can take home. And it really resonates with them. I mean, you can say, oh, yeah, I see a car, in my reading. Did your loved one or whoever die in a car, or are you afraid of cars? And they'll accept that reading. But if you put it into artwork, it just becomes powerful because, again, you're using that imagination. So it's almost like a story of somebody's life on the orograph.
Yeah, but really, really brilliant, really interesting. And obviously, you've mentioned that kids can start actually, if they're into photography, make their own oracle cards, which is not something that I ever thought, of doing before, but it sounds like a really interesting concept, based on your own photographs that you're taking, you start associating them with things and develop them into your own oracle cards. And I guess they have more of because we both know, you're meant to develop a connection with your cards.
Mm-hmm.
You're meant to have them and, have your own energy and become comfortable with them. And what a better way to develop a connection if you've made your own oracle cards from photographs that are inspiring to you. Brilliant. I absolutely love that. I guess this leads us on to the colors then, which are, things that we are things that potentially parents can watch out for, and parents can learn to identify when a child is displaying one of these colors. And I don't know about you, but I was not aware that there was like 8 colors. So maybe that's just me lacking in my knowledge. But I was like, what? 8 colors? I really must have to find out about this. And I guess it's just very valuable for anyone who's listening in or watching this, to understand what these colors are. And they're part of your clairvoyance, your psychic abilities. And we have clairaudience, which is your psychic hearing. And I'm going to ask you just to talk slightly about them and hope you're able to give a little description on them.
Okay, so yeah, and even like you said, I've had to learn the clairs, and when I talk to clients, I don't really say the clairs. I explain how I'm getting the information. Okay, so a lot of times I actually have to look at my list because I don't really use that terminology much, but I know exactly what it is. But okay, so let's start with clear cognitance. Okay, and that is clear knowing. So whenever you are born, everybody is born with clear knowing, and that is just knowing something, using that gut feeling that you have. And we tend to ignore that, and you shouldn't, but just knowing something. And whenever I'm doing psychic and mediumship, I always tell them, I just know I need to tell you something. So that's kind of that kind of clairsentience is a kind of feeling. Now that's a little bit different. That's like if you are around somebody who is sad, you're going to feel how they feel. Okay, you're going to feel sad. It's almost like being an empath. Or if somebody died of a heart failure, sometimes you'll have that feeling and you're going, oh my gosh, your loved one died of a heart. Now, I don't use that. A lot of people do. I tell my team, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to feel anything. And when I do my readings, I don't talk about how somebody dies because they want to talk about their life, basically. Okay, clairvoyance. Oh my gosh, children have this where you have visions, okay? And talking about you have pictures that come to you. And a lot of times all of a sudden I'll be talking and I'll have like a car. Okay, I'll have a vision of a car. And it's almost like watching a movie. And I just know something happened and I'll say, okay, I don't understand this, but I'm going to explain what I see. And a lot of times you can just see the client go, oh, I understand completely what you're talking about. Okay. But yeah, and that's where you're using your imagination. You're not using logic. And then clairaudience, okay, is hearing. So when you say hearing, you're actually hearing inside your mind. This is where I thought I was hearing voices. And I told my mentor, I said, I hear my voice, but it's not my thoughts. And she goes, that's mediumship. They are actually talking through your voice because a lot of times they'll use your voice because they don't have a voice, of course, they're just energy. So that's how, whenever I communicate with a loved one on the other side, it's almost like a conversation. I ask them questions and they answer back. So it's almost telepathically to spirit, but that's when you're hearing something. So when you hear something, you're not going crazy. If you're developing that, you just learn how to do it. Okay, so clairscent is when smelling. Now, a lot of people can smell if they're connecting in with a loved one. They can smell perfume in a different flavor of a loved one used to maybe wore a flower scent, and they smell that, or they smell smoke. I don't. Do you do that? Do you have that clear?
No, it's normally not something that's in development in me, clairaudience and the scent one. And there are two that are very, I would say, completely underdeveloped. But just in bed the other night, just before I drifted off, I started smelling smoke. I started smelling smoke, and I knew that was my partner's deceased mother coming through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and that's awesome. That to me is just love right there, that they're connecting with you and they knew how to do it.
yeah,
That's totally awesome. Have you ever tasted something like?
No, I don't think I've ever tasted anything. I was going to say that's the least one. My my claircognizance, my clairvoyance, and my probably sentience would be my most strong ones whenever I'm doing psychic work or psychic or mediumship. They would be normally how I would get messages through. I don't think I've ever tasted anything. I could be wrong.
Right.
I don't think I've ever. I would hear people go, I'm getting this taste in my mouth, but it's not something that has come to me at all.
Now, I have had experience where I was in I want to say haunted home, that they had spirits around. And I've heard that lower energy vibration can do this, but I tasted metallic. It was almost like death, that kind of thing. So I knew I was around a spirit that had that lower energy. It didn't scare me, but it's like, oh, that's awful tasting. Now, one thing that we didn't talk about is holding an object and getting information from it.
Oh, yes.
I can't. Oh, I've tried to do that, and I don't have that ability. Do you?
I think we call it something here over in the UK. It's called it's called a particular name. I can't remember what the hell the name of it, but I've been to workshops in which they've done that, and actually we've done that. I'm not too sure whether it is holding the object or reading it, but certainly give readings from ribbons.
Right.
Leaves. and obviously cards and just an object from a person. I think it's just a transference of energy. You're picking up on the energy, really. But there is a term for it. I can't remember what the hell it is, but once again, it's just all these kind of different things. But definitely, I just think people have these clairs. Some are more stronger than the other. And I don't think that anyone has all of these clairs functioning. Certainly not that I've experienced.
Yeah, I haven't either. I agree.
Yeah,
but we're all different.
Yeah, I think there was Claire Hanging. I think that's it. The Claire, isn't that it?
Claritation. Yeah. So whenever, like what we were talking about, an object, it's almost like when somebody goes into a room and they can touch the wall, they can really feel the energy of the wall and get some information that way. So it's just touching, or even touch. Oh, I know. And another thing is, okay, I had a friend that actually could not wear used clothes because she could feel the energy of the person, or sleep in a bed in a hotel room because she could feel, the different energy that was left behind. So, but yes, so I don't have that as well. Thank goodness I wear used clothing quite a bit. So
yeah, it is amazing, but because I kind of like, or have been in a kind of group, and we've set up Zoom meetings for our kind of small group, which are developing mediums and psychics. And it's just amazing to see, the different abilities and different gifts that each person displays. And we can kind of go, God, I wish I had that ability. But they're probably, well, not probably, I know that the same people are going, well, I wish I had your ability. I wish thing. And I guess it's just a recognition that we're all blessed in different ways. We all have these different clairs, and I think that most people in society have them at some level. They're just underdeveloped and misunderstood, really, at the end of the day. It's amazing, actually, how many people think I've never done any of this before, and then they turn out that they have a latent ability. God, I didn't realize I could do anything like this. It is fascinating. I do miss that. I really do miss that. And I hope one day that I do get an opportunity to go back and really develop my psychic, abilities. And that kind of leads into whole different things like remote viewing and all that sort of stuff as well. There's so many different things that you can do with psychic awareness. But anyway, yeah, I think that was everything. I think, no, empathy, wasn't it? There was a last one for empathy, the clerk.
And that is, yes. And that's, I definitely, and children have that, but yes. And I want to say a majority of, I know we were saying that not everybody has it, but empathy, you really, I don't think you become a light worker unless you do have empathy for others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we all have that.
And it's not this. Sometimes it can be difficult. That's what I'm trying to say. Empathy does not mean to say, "Oh, I feel love all the time." You can pick up on society in general, and sometimes you're feeling completely out of sync and going, "Why do I feel so down and so low?" And if you don't understand that you're empathetic, then you'll probably have a hard time of it. But if you do understand that, sometimes you'll forget about it. Sometimes I go days and I go, what the hell is going on with me? Why am I so low? And I'm trying all these different techniques. I'll put on love songs, or I'll put on high vibrational music. No, it's not working. Okay, maybe I need a bit of comedy in my life. Maybe, no, that's not working. Okay, a bit of positive thinking. No, that's not working. Okay, stop the thoughts and change the subject. It doesn't work until you actually realize, oh, right, okay, I'm picking up on either society, or else we're going through a shift is another one. People who are empathetic will understand these vibrations that are hitting the earth in order to help people, assist them to go through this. But sometimes I kind of like attribute this, or kind of have this analogy. It's like standing with your back either to the sea and waves coming in. You don't see the wave coming in. You only notice it when you're experiencing it. And it's kind of like that there. We don't know when these things are coming. It's only we're slap bang in the middle of it and we go, oh my God, I don't realize what it is it's experiencing. So empathy is while it's a beautiful gift, sometimes it can be difficult to deal with. Um, and certainly when you're exposed to negative people and negative energies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a kind of spiritual energy, but maybe an energy that's left in the room from a bad atmosphere or an argument or something like that. There, we can, as empathetic people and as empathetic psychics, we can pick up on that and can lower our vibration. So it is very, very interesting. So I guess one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is we've talked about the family, we've talked about the children, we've talked about, family family members and their responsibility towards psychic children. But one of the things that you mentioned in your book as well, which is really great, is if you're a spiritual light worker, if you're a psychic, a medium who is looking to offer their help to parents of psychic children. And I can't remember if we mentioned this at the start of it or just before it, where I was saying, like, before I read your book, if anyone had come to me and said, like, my child is displaying all these abilities, can you help? I kind of like, well, I know all these things, but I would no idea how to put them all into practice. And what you have here is guidelines for people who are looking to offer their help, for light workers, for consent, for written consent. You have forms written out that people can copy, like legal kind of tender, payment release, what to do, how to charge people if they're late. And also recommending, if the parents need it, medical counselors or medical services outside of spiritual services. And also when it's time to leave that family to flourish on their own, or when to come back and check on them. I'm wondering, could you talk about just that end of it?
Oh, okay. Whenever to leave a family?
An aspect of it, this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Where did you get that idea from? Or was that part of your training, okay, Michelle, if you're going to go out and do this work, you need to have these rules and guidelines in place?
Well, and absolutely. So, and that's kind of a clinical point of view whenever, I worked in the education business. But I think it's just great communication with the parent, because you need to say, I'm going to provide this service. I want to make sure that you understand all my services, that it's not, it's all holistic. It's not, like the medical business. It's more holistic thinking. And so the parent needs to understand it. And because the child is a minor and you're working with the family and with a child, you want to, again, say, just put everything out there and say, this is all we're going to do. And I need your permission. So I need it in writing, because you never know. Sometimes parents will get emotional and then they start, and I don't want to start saying blaming you, but they've got sometimes some triggers. We all do. And so it's almost like being a therapist, but not, because again, it's holistic. And so that's why the forms are in there, but there is questionnaires as well, because you want to know where the child is coming from, what part of the life is the spirituality, the spiritual events happening. Is it interfering with their self-esteem? Is it interfering with their social or their friends, like, saying, get out of here, I don't want to talk to you anymore? Or is it really hurting the family dynamic? So that's why it's really important to get the more information, the better. And then, of course, we're there to get paid, right? So you need to make sure that the family understands what your payment plan is. And I mean, because it is a business, right? And then you need to know when to stop the services. Say, okay, when we're going to meet once a month or once a week, I'm going to give you homework, exercises that you can do with your child. And then if you feel comfortable enough after 2 months of working with me, I'm going to go ahead and, maybe put you on consult or leave you on your own. Because what you don't want is a light worker. You don't want these parents leaning on you too much, because they're on their own journey. You're there to kind of consult with them and lead them on their way. They, if they're calling you in the middle of the night, 24 hours a day, they're not going to learn how to do it themselves, know how to control it. So that's why you need to kind of give them their tools and say, here you go. But every child will go through different levels of development, and they may need to call you back in 6 months, which is fine. And then you help them again, but you just don't want them to depend too much on you. It's almost like as a psychic medium, you'll get the same customers like once a week. And it's like, okay, you're obsessed with getting readings. You don't need to do that because nothing changes usually, 3 to 6 months. So that's kind of the same thing. You want them to be independent family and just give them some guidance.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly the answer I was looking for. And you're absolutely right. Like there's really no point in any work we do, whether it's giving a family counseling or guidance, giving someone a psychic reading or a mediumship reading. There's no point them coming back a week, 2 weeks, even 3 months later if they haven't put the advice into practice. And that's what it's all about. Nothing's going to change for them. The advice is still going to be the same unless you have, put that advice into practice and are now finding something new that's really come up. So that pretty much answers everything. One thing I did want to mention, I forgot to actually say to you, is I always think of mediumship as like a game of charades, isn't it? That we're standing there and the spirit are going, because it's a movie, 2 syllables, and we're having to try and interpret the message to get it. So that's kind of like my kind of analogy for mediumship. But for anyone who doesn't understand the way it works, it's done through, as you mentioned, all these different clerks. And a large part of that is your imagination and your feelings. 2 fundamentally vital things that we tend to overlook in our modern society. We're told are pretty much worthless. It's only your imagination. Just forget about it. It's only your imagination. It wasn't real. It was only your imagination. But knowing, how vital your imagination is in mediumship and how much your feelings play a role in that there, it just seems crazy that, the entire world should be turned upside down to completely value these things that we've been taught are fairly worthless in society. I wonder, could you just give a quick sage-like answer on that?
On how society has turned it off?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because a lot of times they'll say, oh, you didn't hear anything, it was coincidental, or, there again, you're getting that logical mind into the scheme of things. They're thinking way too much about it. They're not looking at it spiritually, that yes, things can actually happen. You can actually, get that mediumship. And what really, I think, I want to put it this way. A lot of times when I'm doing mediumship, when a lot of times they'll go, oh yeah, you can do that. Right. And they're just kind of listening. But once you start bringing in that evidence, their eyes get bigger and they're going, how did you know that? And I know that mediumship is kind of changing because, I could, tell you the truth. I could, if somebody gave me their name and I looked up their name and I looked on their Facebook page, I could see all of their family members and everything. And so there's different kinds of evidence. There's I know when your loved one was born, I know what they look like, whatever. But when you start talking about memories, you don't necessarily have that on Facebook. And especially when you're little and because I always ask the spirit, kind of give me, some memory so that they understand that it is you. And it just takes a little piece and they go, oh my gosh, now I really believe it.
Yeah.
And I think that society gets that logic in there, just like anything else. And they're going, oh, you don't smell anything, or that didn't move, or, that penny was there because somebody dropped it. And so it's just, again, the people that put the logic in there, they don't understand it. They're just not at that point yet to understand it. But I think we as light workers can plant the seed along the way and say, there is something to this.
Absolutely. Brilliant explanation. Absolutely perfectly put. So we're coming to the end of this, unfortunately, because we could talk all day about that.
Absolutely.
Just actually, because you're absolutely right there. I was doing a healing on a few people, and actually a message started coming through for them. And I was kind of like, well, listen, I'm trying to do healing here, please, go away, which was the wrong thing to do. But that's the way I've been taught, which is kind of outdated now. But anyway, after it, I was giving the people the pieces of information because it wasn't meant to be a bit of reading. And there was something that I'd mentioned which meant something to that lady and her husband. Specifically for the lady, and she's like, you could not have known that. You could not have known that because I've never spoke about that to anyone. And that's where you have the proof. That's how you know a fraud, because there are frauds in this game too, who will read Facebook. And I actually listened to something very, very recently there, which was really interesting. It was on the BBC website. Fake medium, we called it, and it was about the shady world of mediumship and psychic readings back in like the early 19th century. And it was listening to their techniques made me doubt my own a bit. Oh my God, am I giving someone a hot reading and stuff? Really? So it just goes to show you that was back then. They were doing hot readings, cold readings, all these different silly things that they would do, but some ingenious things. And I guess in today's modern society, where we have access to technology and people put so much of their lives up on the internet for all to see, this is what differentiates someone who is a genuine psychic, a genuine medium, from someone as a fraud. When they're able to pluck something and that person says, you could not have known that, there's no way. That's what it's all about. So absolutely brilliant. Michelle, what does the future then hold for you? Have you any plans? Have you any grandiose plans then?
I love that, yes, to stay alive. Okay. So it's very interesting because I'm the same way. I don't know how this is going to play out, because I feel like, again, a calling, sometimes you don't know. I'm letting the process go because I feel like a lot of times if I try to choose to do something, that's, I'm interfering with the process and, with everything. So I'm just hoping to continue and strengthen and heal people and plant that seed that there is something greater than ourselves, and to have that faith and be inspirational. And we will see what comes out in the next couple of years.
Brilliant. And where can people find you then, if they want to find you, if they want to find your new book? Where can that be purchased?
Okay, so, well, first, to find the book, you can go to Amazon or any bookstore online. And then I would really, to find me, to go to my website, which is www.michellehendersonmedium.com.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. And I would really urge people to buy Michelle's new book. I completely forgotten the title again. You'll have to.
Oh, it's okay. Maybe I should have, changed it.
Everybody else knows. So why
here it is.
Absolutely brilliant. There we go. Spiritual Nurturing for Intuitive Children. I've read the book. I'll give it the seal of approval. Not that really means very much, but it is really a fascinating book. And if you've enjoyed listening to this interview, if you're intrigued by some of the things that we've talked about, if you have children who have been diagnosed with autism or are on the autism spectrum, and if they're playing up, if you don't know what to do for them, it might be worth your while looking into this here. We're generally not far wrong. Our psychic radar is generally thing, and I can see that Michelle's is bang on the money, as they say. Michelle, I know that you can already give a little spiel there, but have you one kind of message for parents who are viewing this, for people who are interested in developing psychic work? Is there something that you could just sum up that you live by, some sort of creed that's going to change the world and be remembered like in 2,000 years' time?
Well, I certainly hope so. No, what I love to tell people, because this is the lesson that I have learned along the way, is to be able, you need to embrace who you are. If that means being a psychic, being a light worker, just being, you every day, just being a basic human being, you need to accept who you are and embrace that and show people your authentic self. Because once you start, kind of hiding behind doors per se, and not showing your true self, you're not going to learn from it. And you're not going to see the wonderful world that you can live in. Once you accept it, show others your authentic self. I mean, every day is just like looking through a child's eye, just wonderful.
That's just amazing. It really is. And I'm going to leave it there. I could jump on and talk more because I feel like there's more to talk about, but I really want to leave people with that beautiful message. Michelle, it's been an absolute delight reading your book,
Thank you.
learning from you as well, and listening to you. You're such a bubbly, interesting person. And I think that the work that you're doing is vital. And I really do hope that more people avail of your services and purchase this book, because I think it's so, so vital, especially in these times too, where this new kind of shift, this new vibration is coming in, and it's throwing up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand what's going on or what they're experiencing, and they need guidance. They absolutely need guidance, children and parents too. So please do avail, and I will definitely be sending and asking for spirits to send as much help your way. Hopefully you'll not be overburdened, but
it's okay. That's why I'm here. So yes.
Well, thank you. We're going to leave it there, and I think we're going to go and have a game of spiritual charades after the broadcast.